the computer. Okay. Welcome, Claudia, to the Biohacker Babes. Here
I'm
we are
so
for
glad.
part two.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, we're so happy to have you on. So this is part two. We just had the opportunity to be on your podcast for part one. So we'll link to that so everyone can go check that out. But now it is your turn. We get to pick your brain. So, Claudia, you have done some amazing work in the longevity space, but you didn't start in this space. You have a different background. So, how did you get curious about longevity and health optimization to get you where you are today?
Yeah, really good question. I joke and say I've had many lifetimes in this lifetime alone. So it's been an interesting journey, but I think we learn and go on. And we were talking before on our previous conversation about curiosity. And I think that that's it. Like I will be an eternal student. And it's always like the more I know how little I know. So I think it's that curiosity that drove me as well. And so I guess going back, my mother had a medical background. I was convinced I was going to go into medicine. I studied everything I needed to do. And then when I was sitting down to make my university applications, I'm like, do I really want to be in a hospital with neon lights every day? And I'm like, maybe I'll put business and languages down as well. So went down that route, had my master's in international business. And back in the day, they used to really force you to go into management consulting or investment banking. So I ended up at Goldman Sachs in finance and investment banking, pretty far from longevity and health optimization space as well. But amazing learning and yeah, was really, really great experience. Went on from there to become a serial entrepreneur, mainly in the tech space, but also with health focus and some of the projects that I did. And I think from a personal perspective, I was the A type where I didn't need sleep. Like sleep is, you can do that when you're dead. Like these stupid things that a 20-year-old me used to think was actually okay. So now I know, obviously. And part of that obviously led to things like chronic fatigue, chronic sinusitis, gut health issues, like you name it. The body keeps the score, as we know, right? So you can burn the candle all you want, but unless you really build in recovery practices, nothing's going to happen. And I'd say it's about 14 years ago now or 12 years ago, 13 years almost, when I uncovered that there was a thing like health optimization, biohacking, whatever you want to call it, that you can actually reverse things. You can step into this beautiful high energy version of yourself again by implementing certain practices. And of course, then I was hooked. And I had more and more people asking me, what should I do about this? What should I do about that? And in 2020, it really all came together in terms of, yes, it was COVID. My mother had a really bad fall, which expedited her dementia. And so I was having these amazing conversations with some of the world's leading scientists and pioneers in the space. And I was like, COVID hit, people were searching for answers and information. And I thought, why don't I start a podcast and share some of these conversations with these amazing people doing amazing work and, get it out to the world. And when I thought it would just be kind of a 6 episode thing during COVID, etc., but it just exploded from there. Obviously, COVID was very timely and people's interest and focus on it as well. And I went on to do training and to become a peak performance coach with longevity, health optimization, nutrition, but also around NLP, I have Reiki mastery and a breath work and a bunch of different things too. And so that's really just been my passion of empowering people to step into the highest version of themselves today and live like that for as long as possible. I'm not a big fan of putting a number on it. I know some people are like 200 years or whatever. End of the day, like live at your best for as long as possible. And if you got to go, then, hopefully like that. And then that's it. So there you
Yeah,
go.
that's the goal.
Nutshell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
that's
agree.
great.
It's like we're always learning. There's never going to be an end to the learning. That's like the beauty of life in this journey on this planet. But
Yes.
I'm curious if I really want to dig into the NLP and understanding of words and languages. But if you could give your Goldman Sachs self advice, knowing what you know now in this present moment, we talked about being present on our podcast. What would it be?
Ooh. It's tricky. And especially back then, I feel like now more junior people in larger corporations are more empowered and have a better say. I think back in my day, it was, they say jump and it's how high. Doesn't matter that it's 2 a.m. and the presentation is for like whatever time. It's like,
Mm,
so I think agency is back in that day lacking in terms of like make sure you get your 8 hours. It's like good luck, you're not going to have a job in 2 weeks if you're
Oh
like
Mm.
man.
leaving the office, right? So I think it's taking care of yourself as much as possible, given the parameters of what you have. And, we were discussing this separately, like life gets in the way sometimes. Like, we all, the three of us know a lot of the strategies and practices. Do we always implement them? Like there's travel, there's kids, there's different things that come up, right? So I think the advice I would give is, given the circumstances, try and get as much sleep as possible, really focus on super healthy nutrition, take breaks wherever possible, go outside, get daylight. You're in the office for up to 20 hours a day. It's wild, right? You're in this artificial light, like circadian rhythms we've also discussed in the past. Like this is not optimal to be under these neon lights. And so I think it's being compassionate, which is also really important because I used to be the toughest person on myself. I tend to be still, but I try to be a bit more compassionate and be compassionate. And then with what you can do, try to do the best in terms of sleep, nutrition, exercise, daylight exposure, parasympathetic nervous system triggering, like as much as you can to be in that sort of rest and digest state, to reduce the adrenaline that is constantly pumping through your brain. So yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I think
I can't
that's
even
so
imagine.
smart because within those confines of corporate America, it's like we don't have a lot of control, but the control we do have,
Yeah.
we have agency. But I think it is really giving ourselves the compassion and grace for the things that we can't change. Because I do see people in that structure just stressing about all the checklist items that they can't do, and that's not serving your nervous system or
100%.
yourselves.
Yeah.
So I really
Yeah.
like that. So agency
Yeah.
and compassion.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
advice.
So, Claudia, I read that your biological age is 16 years younger than your chronological age, which is that's a huge jump. So congratulations, first of all. And reminder to our listeners, our chronological age is the age that's on your driver's license, right? How many years you've been on this planet. Biological age is looking at really how fast you're aging. So the goal is to have your biological age less than your chronological age, and you've done an amazing job with that. So could you maybe share with our audience what you think are like the top three things that have really moved that for you?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. And I just had a birthday recently, so I guess I could add another year on it, although I
Oh,
probably
17 now. Okay. Happy birthday.
growing younger. Thank you. And so I think number one for me was sleep, right? So I think for anyone looking at it, it's like, where do you know, knowing yourself, your schedule, like where are your biggest faux pas? Like what are the things you should be doing better? And so for me, it was super obvious was the sleep. Going, oh, it's okay to sleep, go to bed at 1, 2 a.m. Like, oh, let me just get this done. Let me get this done. It's not that important in the end. Like you're not going to remember doing those little things. So I prioritize sleep. Another one for me that was a really big deal was over exercising. And so, the A type, like if I'm at the gym, then I do the 1 hour of spinning and the 1 hour of weight training, like 2 hours and the da da da, cutting into my sleep because I was spending so much time exercising. And it was really interesting that when I was speaking with the CEO and co-founder of GlycanAge, the biological age testing company, that actually professional athletes will have a biological age older than their chronological one because of the stressors of over exercising. And this for me was so counterintuitive. It was so ingrained in me. Like if you exercise, you have to push so hard. And now it's so interesting that I do less and I'm fitter, stronger, etc. So it doesn't mean don't do anything. And I don't want people to think like, oh, I can stay on the sofa. No, it's like you
Yeah.
get out and do stuff, but maybe you do a 10-minute run instead of an hour run, or you do your weights and you don't have to do, 3 sets of 15 repetitions, maybe do the three, whatever it is for you, right? But that was a real, I think, eye opener for me too. And then the third one, which was really big, was also gut health repair. And I think from the years of stress and, poor diet and back in my student days, drinking the odd glass of alcohol that we sometimes do when we're students, I think that I didn't appreciate how damaged my gut health was essentially, and really focusing on the repair was just so amazing. My energy levels just completely shifted. I had this vitality that I hadn't had for many, many years. So that was really, really empowering, I think, too. And I think that projected and propelled me in repair of other organs and systems that allowed the biological age to reverse. so much, essentially.
Can
Amazing
you
list.
share more about your gut health repair? Because I think it's equal parts in versus out, like reducing the exposures, but also bringing things in that can help heal. Can you talk about maybe kind of the big buckets that you played with there?
Sure, yeah. So one was for me was the testing. And I know some people are like, the testing's quite expensive. So it's even like, understanding where you are. So because I've lived in 9 countries, I've lived, traveled to third world countries. I had H. pylori. I had like too much of the bad bacteria, right? And not enough of the good one. So first it was just understanding kind of what was my baseline and treating that. And so in terms of treating that, it was understanding, okay, I need to be replenishing, right? So adding prebiotic and prebiotic food, probiotics as well. So changing things, having the kefir more often, taking the supplements as well, like really good quality probiotic supplements I found really helpful. Kimchi, like I'm sure you guys talk about this a lot on the podcast too. What I found really powerful also was the organic chicken bone broth. um, Fire and Kettle was a brand that I really like because they slow cook it over 48 hours. So there's a lot of collagen release and nutrients, etc. And then the L-glutathione I thought was really helpful as well for repairing my gut lining. So I did that too. And then just focusing on, eating the rainbow of organic fruits and vegetables as much as possible. I noticed that my tendency was, let me just stick to these 5 because it's, my favorite and it's habit and whatever. But it's like, no, like
It's
taking the
easy.
time. Exactly,
You're
right?
not alone with that. Yeah.
It's like, what's the most efficient? I'm just going to kind of walk through the supermarket and get the same stuff again. And
Yeah.
increasing fiber, I think, was a really big thing. I assumed I was eating a lot of fiber, but really made an effort of adding extra fiber into like my superfood smoothies and things like that too, just to support, I think, the whole digestive process as well. And as much as possible, like reducing stress. And I think particularly as women, like when we're stressed, we kind of, we shallow breathe from our upper lungs, we clench our stomach, and the whole bowel system just doesn't function properly. And then I guess one last one that I loved is starting the morning with a warm or hot lemon. So basically hot water with fresh lemon squeezed in. I feel like that kind of kickstart the whole system, detoxes the liver a little bit as well. Helps you wake up because you definitely feel it. And I even drink it during the day with grated ginger. So if no one's tried that, I highly recommend to grate ginger, let it seep for 10 minutes, then squeeze a full lemon in. And if you are not awake by then, you definitely will be when you take a sip of it because it's quite potent. But yeah, those are just some of the strategies. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, just starting the day with a warm drink, like that's huge. Like not drinking ice cold beverages. It just like shuts down your digestive system. And then the stress too.
Yeah.
And I think some people have tuned into that. Like if you have something really stressful happen, they might have, some people run to the bathroom or some people get really constipated. So yeah, I'm glad that you shared those with us. Um, so you have an incredible podcast. You have had the opportunity to interview some of the greatest minds around the world in the space of longevity and health optimization. So can you share with us maybe some of the biggest takeaways you've had in these interviews?
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's hard to fine
I'm
tune
sure there's
them.
a lot. I'm sure there's a lot.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm like, okay. So I think starting at the beginning, and obviously because I'm super passionate about Dr. Dale Bredesen, neuroscientist, founding CEO of the Buck Institute. Um, he has essentially a protocol developed that has been clinically tested, or done clinical trials on, but the cohort wasn't huge, but obviously it costs a lot to run a clinical trial, so it's not there yet. But his protocol essentially was helping or helps people to reverse cognitive decline and Alzheimer's, which is groundbreaking because there is no FDA drug that will reverse cognitive decline. And at the end of the day, he's identified 38 underlying drivers that lead to cognitive decline, including mold and low magnesium, low vitamin D, insulin resistance, head trauma, hormone, et cetera, et cetera. So there's 38 different drivers that would lead to that. And if you check in on them and check your markers and just make sure that they stay in a stable range, even if you have a genetic disposition, and I have one of the APOE4 genes, not 2, thankfully, but 1, it means that I have a 30% lifetime chance of developing it if I don't do anything. But if I keep my parameters in a good range, then there's no reason I should get it as well. And I found that so empowering because with my mother's dementia, and I think with a lot of other people I've spoken to since and clients, etc., people are like, well, I don't have a choice. Like, this is my destiny. My family have had it, etc. And I feel like take your power back and understand what is actually going on. Like, what is the root cause below it? And just make sure that you detox where you need to, you supplement where you need to, you heal certain modalities that are needed to be healed so you never get into that issue. So I think that that was really exciting and really empowering to speak with Dr. Dale Bredesen on the podcast and understand that neurological degeneration should be a thing of the past. This is not something we should have in the future if caught on time. So I think that that was
Yeah.
really Dr. David
That's
Perlmutter has been
awesome.
on as well. Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something?
I'm so glad you said that. I think not enough people know about the Bredesen protocol. Like, I wish this was like on mainstream media everywhere because what he's doing is just totally changing the game. And Lauren and I were the same. We're ApoE 3/4. Our
Mhm.
grandfather had Alzheimer's. So, but we're both empowered. Like, there's so much that we can do. That's, like you said, that's not your destiny just because it's in your genes.
Yeah.
So, very,
Yeah.
very cool. You got to interview him.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. I've had him on a few times as well, and he's doing really interesting research now in LA, and I want to get him back on because he's looking at psilocybin. So we are talking about plant medicine previously as well, on its support in neurodegenerative disease as well, and doing the research around that. So I think that's really interesting too. So watch this space,
Oh,
or you guys
okay.
have him as well. Dr. David Perlmutter has been on. I'm sure many of your listeners will be familiar with his work as well. And I really liked a point that he made is that the state of gut health will impact your brain health because we know that the gut is your second brain. And it basically impacts your ability to think rationally. So prefrontal cortex versus amygdala, fight or flight, right? And so this is what he was saying that because there's a global pandemic of unhealthy guts, essentially from ultra processed foods, etc., stress, etc., that the state of the world that we're in is in correlation with the state of people's gut health. So
Mhm.
all political leaders that are like, doing crazy things, they're reacting more from the amygdala versus the prefrontal cortex. So I was like, huh,
Ah,
can you imagine you can fix everyone's gut health? Like, what would politicians all of a sudden be doing? And like, what would the state of the world be in? So
yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
can
about
you?
that a lot, like driving on the highway. If I see a crazy driver or crazy person on the street, crazy. I'm like, oh, they're inflamed and their gut health sucks. That's what I think when I see crazy, angry people.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, good point.
It's it's like asking them, like, how healthy are you really? Like, start
Yeah.
with that first. Should you be making these important political decisions if you are not in a healthy state, right?
Wow.
Uh,
Can you imagine if that was criteria for being in a position of
wow.
power? Let's check. Yeah. Let's check all your lab markers. Let's check your metabolic health, your genetics, your gut health.
Wow. So Bobby Kennedy, in case you're listening, can you bring this into the White House, please?
Yeah,
Oh my
right.
gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, you
Full
have to
gut
believe
repair.
it. Yeah. What did Einstein say? Imagination is the preview of life's coming attraction. So here we go. Let's see.
Yes. Yes.
Ah,
I
yeah.
love that. Yeah.
And then I had
Cool.
Dr. Jennifer Garrison on. She's at the Buck Institute, and Jennifer is working on extending ovarian aging and fertility in women. And so this was so fascinating to understand that women's ovaries, depending on the research, age compared to other organs in the body 2.5 to 5 times faster. And we don't know why exactly. And the impact of it is not just around fertility, it's around hormonal health, well-being, etc. But what I really important point that Jennifer makes as well is the economic impact. Because your average 20, 30-year-old female is making other decisions in terms of career and what they want to do and their dreams and aspirations because they have this certain fertility window and acting accordingly. So by empowering women, not only from a health perspective, but also an economic perspective, to have more freedom of choice and time, etc. I thought that that was really, really fascinating to understand, what's going on there. And there's some interesting trials coming out of Columbia University in terms of rapamycin usage for extending ovarian aging, etc. So I think it's a really, really interesting space. It impacts 50%, or a little bit over 50% of the world's population. So clearly very relevant. And
Mhm.
also that she really makes a huge point in terms of the lack of research that is done on women. And it was an interview I had with Dr. Mansour Mohammed, a leading geneticist who works around women's health, and he was saying that 80% of adverse pharmaceutical outcomes are in women. And guess why? Because the
Wow.
pharmaceutical products are not tested on women.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yet
crazy.
there's no problem to prescribe them to women. Like, you take this. Oh, sorry,
Mm.
you have an adverse side effect. Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
So really, really fascinating stuff there. And yeah, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
I've had great fun podcast interviews with like Dr. Amy Killen or Susan Bratton about like sex for longevity. I think it's not talked about enough, and like increasing sex span and things like this as well for hormonal health and happiness, to, like relationships and the importance of relationships for longevity and things like that too. So anyway, I could go on and on, so I
Very
will
cool.
pause.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love
Isn't
that.
podcasting the best?
It's so much
Yeah.
We get
fun.
a
Yeah,
front row seat to all the shows and the greatest education. It's so cool.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious a little bit more with the ovarian aging. So do
Mhm.
you think like are we going to see that women are able to reproduce later and later? Is that coming soon?
Yeah, so Jennifer's way she talks about is that it's not necessarily around fertility, and that is one of the points. And it's not like we want women at 60, 70, 80 years old to have children. Like, it's not necessarily that
Yeah.
the point of it, but it's the hormonal health, right? Because the ovaries play such a fundamental role communicating with all the systems in our body. Like, it's not understood enough by the majority of people, including medical professionals, because it's not taught, right? And I think there are exciting advancements happening. Jennifer just won an X Prize competition, and I want to explain it properly. She basically, the X Prize, we're trying to come up with a new topic area, and Jennifer was selected out of 20 finalists, her topic area for extending female for ovarian aging. I'm butchering the term, and we need to look it up for the show notes. But essentially, she her X Prize topic won, and so it will be funded, and it empowers then research teams around the world to work on this topic of extending ovarian aging in order to find a breakthrough and win the X Prize amount. So at the moment, there's the X Prize for Health Span, which is $101 million. So obviously, a lot of people around the world are focused on trying to win it, and they have certain criteria. And so now there is an X Prize around women's health and ovarian aging. So I'm very hopeful that in the
Yay.
next years, hopefully, there's going to be some amazing breakthroughs off the back of it.
Yeah.
That's really
I
exciting.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm 38, so I'm like, come on, I want to get all the things.
The
Keep
Bring it
time is
on.
researching.
now.
The time is
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
just
Yeah.
slow down time. Just work on that span, lengthening the span.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Hmm.
So I want to circle back to NLP
Hmm.
and a question we introduced in the very beginning, the difference between biohacking and longevity, like the perspective of that, because they're just words,
Yeah.
right? We all
Hmm.
have different definitions. We all have different relationships to them. So I'm curious with your NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. Maybe you can also go into that a little bit more, remind our audience what that is,
Hmm.
and then share your perspective on biohacking versus longevity. What can you share?
Beautiful. Yeah. So I think the easiest way to understand neurolinguistic programming is that like our mind doesn't know the difference between like the good or bad. So if we say things like I'm so stupid or like what am I doing? Like if you beat yourself up all day, your mind is going to think I'm an idiot. Like I'm really stupid. Like what am I doing? And if you're your biggest cheerleader, like okay, well done. Like yes, it was a tough day, but I got this done and I'm doing well. Like it's going to be your biggest cheerleader as well. So it needs direction from you. And if you're projecting and communicating either self talk or even externally, it's going to show you more of what you're projecting essentially. So choose, and this is the thing, we have a choice to be your biggest cheerleader and not your biggest bully. And one example, even just for people to think about, is changing the words have to in your vocabulary to get to. So
Mhm.
I get to get up in the morning. I get to go to work. I get to pick up my kids. Like I even get goosebumps saying it now. And I mean, how many times have I said it? And it's shifting that to like one of gratitude and of being. And those are just small words, but the impact is huge. And like physically, like I'm literally getting goosebumps, right? So it has a visceral impact on you and your way of perceiving the world and your being in your day to day. And we've spoken about mindset and things in the past. So I think it's really important. To the point of biohacking versus longevity, I think, and it depends who I'm speaking with about it, different people will have different perspectives. Some people, we mentioned as well, biohacking is very techie. They imagine implanting a chip into your, hand or wherever it might be, injecting yourself, and it's all very scary and lab orientated and not really appealing. Um,
Can
I do.
be. Also could just be get sunshine.
Well, this is it as well, right? So it's
Yeah.
how people perceive it, and I think how you would define it. So for me, the biohacking term that I kind of like is, it's optimizing your body, your biology for what works for you from a personalized medicine approach or precision medicine. And the inside of you and also around you as well, right? So the environment around you is super, super key as well, including people. So all those annoying people that drag you down every day, like you have to sort of clear them out a little bit. That's part of the
Mhm.
process.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so longevity, again, different people, different definitions. Some people are all about it's living to 200 or 180 or whatever that number is. For me personally, this is just a personal thing, but I share this is how do you step into the highest version of yourself in body, mind, and spirit today to live your true purpose, to live your true self, to not have those worries and concerns about having less energy, having all these ailments, running to doctors the whole time. I mean, I see with my parents and sort of their generation, it's all about the hip surgery and this surgery and this and this
Mm.
person's passed. And how can we avoid those conversations for as long as possible and instead do the things we love today that bring us joy, bring us energy while having beautiful peak health for as much as possible? And I think that if you get to that state and into that point, you can really be living your true purpose and making a beautiful impact on the world. So if we could all be doing something like that, I think, look at the world's going to be an absolutely amazing place to be in, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. If everyone was living in that state and joy is so important.
Yes.
Like why would you want to extend your lifespan if you are just running around to doctors and stuff and not living your purpose, you're not living a joyful life. So you have to get to that point, and then as long as we can extend from there,
Yeah.
that's the goal. What do you see as being like the most exciting thing coming in the longevity space in the next coming years?
The most exciting thing. There's so many at the moment. I mean, the amount
Yeah.
of research and data coming out all the time is mind-boggling. I
That's
think
super
around,
cool.
yeah, around women's health, I think is really, really exciting. I think, the shaming for women around perimenopause, menopause, and we were just talking about the conference in Palm Beach recently, and they were saying that there's 138 different perimenopausal, menopausal symptoms and counting. So if your doctor thinks, oh, you're fine or you need an SSRI because something's off, it's like go find another doctor who actually understands menopause and perimenopause better. So I think it's empowering women to understand that they're not going crazy and that these are symptoms and they're real, etc. So around women's health, women's aging, and what I'm also excited about, something I'm working on is around brain heart cohesion and a term called brain signal variability and what we can do to empower people from the mind as well, because a lot of biohacking is focused more around the body. So bringing in that brain and heart connection and brain training essentially as well. So that's another area I think is super exciting too.
Mhm. I
Oh,
agree.
what kind of like brain training? Like what are you talking about with that? Or what do you see
So
with that?
so similar to HRV, but for your brain. So BSV, which will be actually announced by one of our partners at the A4M in Las Vegas, coming up soon in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
Yay. And so it's understanding how to be adaptable between different brainwave states. And if you have that flexibility and that adaptability, then you are living at a more prime state so that you can do the things that you really love and make your, impact and live your purpose, etc.
That's
Very cool.
huge. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll get to hear more at A4M very soon.
Yes, I like the preview.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
Claudia, thank you for hanging out with us today. This has been a fun hour between your podcast and ours. If you could give our audience one piece of advice, something they can start doing today to optimize their health and longevity, what
Ooh.
would it be?
I would say the first thing that came to mind was self-love. I think we forget so much about self-compassion, self-love. It's all about external. What else can I do? What else can I acquire? What other gadget device? And it's just coming back to self and appreciating like what amazing beings we are, or you are, right, for someone listening. And being in that self-love state much more often than beating ourselves up. So I think self-love would be my parting message today.
Perfect.
Love that. Yeah, we all need more of that.
For
Always a good
sure.
reminder. Claudia, can you tell our audience where they can find more of you, your podcast, follow you, all the things?
Sure. So my podcast is the Longevity and Lifestyle Podcast. And knowing now what I know, it wouldn't have had an and symbol in it as well. But anyway, and I'm on Instagram, longevity and written out A&D, longevity and lifestyle. And also our website is longevity-and-lifestyle.com. So reach out, love to hear from you. And if you have any questions. So yeah.
Wonderful. All right, we'll link to that in the show notes so it's easy for everyone to find and learn more. Thank you so much for
Wonderful.
joining us today. This was a fun little duo podcast.
Yeah.
Super fun. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We will see you next time.